ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जना शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरुवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तम् अनुपेत्य अपेत्य कृत्यं रापायनो विरह कातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवो विनेदुस् तं सर्वभूतं हृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नारं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। भक्त्या विहीनः पराधलक्षाय क्षिप्तश्चकामारी तरङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वं शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं तवेवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नयनं चरणनिके। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. Okay, so we are going to begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta Om Vishnu Padasta Tatsat Sri Srimad Abhaya Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta Om Vishnu Padasta Tatsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga, and all the Samu Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis. So the last few days we've been hearing, because of the appearance of Lord Shringadev, the day before we were hearing things, the Prahlad Maharaj teaching his classmates. There's a few chapters on that, but we read from one chapter. Something we don't always get to do on Lord Nrsingadev's appearance, and then we read that on his appearance day too. We did not read about his appearance and all because we figured everybody in their own domains would be doing that. But then I thought, well, this is such an important chapter. And yesterday we read, after Lord Nrsinga had appeared and killed the demon, how he remained angry still. And all the different groups of demigods offered prayers to him, including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. And still, he was not pacified, still angry. And we looked at these prayers, and it's very interesting because it's important to understand that not all bhakti is the same, right? Not all devotees are on the same level. And these demigods are appointed to important administrative roles, and many of them don't have administrative roles, but they're still devotees, but they're blessed with such opulence and material facility. And that came out in many of the prayers. They were grateful to the Lord for restoring their positions of prestige, their positions of enjoyment. Not all, they're gradations of the prayers, right? And we got an insight into that, right? And I do believe it was deliberate by Narad relating this to Yudhishthira Maharaj, and Shukadev Goswami subsequently, explaining this to Parikshit, that we can understand this pastime. It has many levels of lessons, right? And now, today, I thought we would hear the prayers of Prahlad. And actually, I don't think we'll get through all of them. It's 55 verses in that chapter. And then after that chapter, Lord Nrsingadev blesses Prahlad and then asks him to ask for a benediction. And then there's further conversation. But when I kind of reviewed this, I realized, oh, this is so important. There's so many subtle instruction and insights into the nature of pure bhakti. And Prahlad Maharaj is one of the great devotees. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad is investigating who's the topmost devotee, and he visits so many devotees, right? And by his conversations with them, we get to appreciate the gradations, right? And there are many stories in the Bhagavatam about other people praying for the benediction of the Lord. We have Dhruva Maharaj, right? Dhruva, we consider him a great devotee, but actually, in the hierarchy of devotees, he's kind of at the bottom. Not that we're disrespecting in any way. He had darshan, he had great reverence, had great devotion, but he began as a sakam bhakta. He prayed to the Lord for material benefit, right? A kingdom even greater than his great-grandfather, Lord Brahma. But because he had Narad Muni as his spiritual master, then he was given a process, and his austerities, in other words, his obedience to his guru, were so, you could say, perfect, completely dedicated, one-pointed. Even though at that point he still had mixed desires, still he had complete Guru Nishta. And when, as a result of his austerities, the whole universe became choked up because he stopped breathing, and the universal airs also became affected. So the demigods prayed to the Lord, please go to him. And he did, but then when he saw the Lord, all those desires went away. Right? He said, oh, I was praying what I thought was the best, but now I see it's only broken glass compared to your benediction and your presence. But then he still had to accept the results of his request. And so he had to live on the earth for some 36,000 years as the king, and then was promoted not to Vaikuntha, but the localized Vaikuntha. And not really developed prema, as we're going to understand it by reading further in the Bhagavatam, but still love of God is there. Now Prahlad is on a higher level. So anyway, we're going to hear his prayers and read through them fairly quickly, touching lightly on some of the points. Srila Prabhupada goes into it in detail. It's very enlightening to read his purports, to study them, to analyze the deeper meaning of each of these prayers and the broad meaning in terms of the practice of bhakti. But, so we'll go to text 1 and then move on. So, Shri Naduvacha evam suradaya sarve Brahma Rudra Parasara no paitum ashakanmanyu samrambham sudarasadam. The great sage Narad continued, the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the other great demigods, dared not come forward before the Lord, who at that time was extremely angry, right? Because he was showing a fearsome quality of his Aishvarya, his role as the ultimate punisher and destroyer, right? And even though they were devotees, they were afraid. They were afraid to go near him. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmiji, was requested to go before the Lord by all the demigods present, who because of fear could not do so. But even she had never seen such a wonderful and extraordinary form of the Lord, and thus she could not approach him. Right? Srila Prabhupada mentioned something important. Is she on the level of the demigods? What was her fear all about? Srila Prabhupada explains that the Lord has unlimited forms, and they're all situated in Vaikuntha, and that's elaborated on a little bit in the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Yet Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, being inspired by Leela Shakti, could not appreciate this unprecedented form of the Lord. Right? So, by Leela Shakti, she's not disturbed in the same way, but her relationship with the Lord, with Lord Narayan, in a particular form, of loving reciprocation. And this form was, outside of that, right? Uh, so Srila Prabhupada quotes Brahmanda Purana, and he explains that, in other words, for the common men, the form of the Lord as Nrsingadev is certainly unseen and wonderful, but for a devotee like Prahlad Maharaj, such a fearsome form of the Lord is not at all extraordinary. So, by the grace of the Lord, a devotee can very easily understand how the Lord can appear in any form he likes. Therefore, the devotee is never afraid of such a form. So there's special favor bestowed upon Prahlad Maharaj, and he remained silent and unafraid, even though all the demigods, including even Lakshmi Devi, were afraid of Lord Nrsingadev. Right? But of course, Lakshmi Devi's fear was of a different nature. Right? Remember, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna was also inspired by Leela Shakti. He also became afraid. But then, seeing the universal form and fearsome nature, the destructive form of the Lord, but then, because that awareness of that particular Aishvarya, that it impeded his devotion and his friendship with Krishna. Oh, I called you friend. What was I thinking? But then the Lord resumed his two-armed form and calmed him and said, I've shown you all this because you're my devotee as well as my friend. Right? So then that relationship was reestablished. But, that goes to show that devotees are attracted and inspired by a particular form. Remember when the gopis at Govardhan near Chandra Sarovara, after Krishna disappeared from that Rasa Leela in the springtime, they were looking everywhere for him, and Krishna, seeing a group of them coming from a distance near what we know now as Paitagram, took a four-armed form. From a distance, they thought, oh, there's Krishna. They ran to meet him, and then they saw, oh, this is four-armed Narayan, who looks very similar to Krishna, right? Extraordinarily beautiful in every way, but no peacock feather, no flute, no special dress, right? And other things. And they offered him respects. But then they asked him, oh, have you seen Krishna? They didn't want to linger and stay and serve that form of the Lord. They wanted to find their own Praneshwara, the most Prananath, the dearmost Lord of their heart. So then, thereafter, Lord Brahma requested Prahlad Maharaj, who was standing very near him, my dear son, Lord Nrsingadev is extremely angry at your demoniac father. Please go forward and please appease the Lord. Narad Muni continued, O king, although the exalted devotee Prahlad Maharaj was only a little boy, he accepted Lord Brahma's words. He gradually proceeded towards Lord Nrsingadev and fell down to offer his respectful obeisance with folded hands. Right. So Prahlad was always the example of perfect etiquette, right? All the qualities of a devotee, very humble, very obedient, right? So then, when Lord Nrsingadev saw the small boy Prahlad Maharaj prostrated at the soles of his lotus feet, he became most ecstatic in affection towards his devotee. Raising Prahlad, the Lord placed his lotus hand upon the boy's head, because his hand is always ready to create fearlessness in all of his devotees. Right? So, what did we always hear? about the Lord and his relationships with his devotees. Ye yatam mam prapadyante tangstataiva bhajamyaham. As they approach and relate to me, I reciprocate accordingly. And that's true on the level of sadhan, but it's also true on the level of perfected bhakti. Different moods and rasas of, moods of service will arise in the heart of the devotee, and the Lord is happy to reciprocate in whatever way the devotee expresses himself. So here Prahlad, unlike the demigods, was fearless and in a loving, ecstatic mood. My Lord has appeared. And then the Lord immediately, those same feelings were in his heart. And he lifted the boy up and placed his hand, which is so fearful to the demons, everyone else, with these fearful, massive claws, now covered in blood and everything. But for Prahlad Maharaj, oh, so wonderful. And by the touch of Lord Nrsingadev's hand on Prahlad Maharaj's head, Prahlad was completely freed of all material contaminations and desires, as if he had been thoroughly cleansed. Therefore, he at once became transcendentally situated, and all the symptoms of ecstasy became manifest in his body. His heart filled with love, and his eyes with tears, and thus he was able to completely capture the lotus feet of the Lord within the core of his heart. And Srila Prabhupada quotes in that connection the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatijaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Right? That one who, engages in my devotional service will never fall down in any circumstance, and at once transcends the modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman, the transcendental position. And then, quoting from 9th chapter, Mam hi partha vipashritya ye pisyu papajonaya striyo vaishas tata shudra te piyanti padam gatim. Very important verse. Actually, I was listening yesterday to 6th chapter of Jaiva Dharma, and this verse was also quoted by Sannyasi Thakur in order to convince, or by that time maybe it's Vaishnav Das, to the Smarta Brahmana, orthodox, materialistic Brahmana, who was not appreciative of the Babajis of Godrum and other places because he couldn't understand their offering respects and honor to devotees, Vaishnavas, advanced Vaishnavas, who by material consideration were either in lower castes or even outside the Varnashram system. And so but, O son of Pritha, those who take shelter of me, though they be of lower birth, they be women or Vaishyas or Shudras, they can approach the supreme destination. So then Prabhupada makes the point. Why is this being said that now he's completely purified? Because he was born in a demoniac family. And virtually demoniac blood flowed within his body, right? Because you inherit the qualities, what we know as DNA, from your parents, right? And on the gross and subtle level, those qualities may be within you. So he was a great devotee, but now by the touch, all of that was completely cleansed. Not a bit of it remained, right? And he also mentions that because, don't think that these things were an impediment to him, because of his devotion, he was exalted. And these impediments on the spiritual path could not stop him from progressing. And so the Lord completed the process, so to speak. Because bhakti is always increasing, right? Love of God is always increasing. When Mahaprabhu did his Mahaprakash, showing his variety of transcendental forms to his different devotees, to show them, yes, I am the avatar for whom you have prayed. I am your Lord. I have come to protect, deliver you, and establish the Yuga Dharma. He showed himself in so many ways for 21 hours, right? And there are instances, particularly like with Kolavecha Sridhar, who felt, oh, well, Mahaprabhu told him, glorify me. And he said, I'm uneducated, I'm unable. And he said, speak. Whatever you speak will be perfect. And he empowered him, and he delivered beautiful prayers. Dhruva Maharaj, another young boy, stunned. How could he offer prayers to that beautiful form of Lord Narayan? But Lord Narayan touched him on the head with his conch shell, and he was able to offer beautiful, glorious prayers. So many examples. Kavi Kanapur, right? He was like 4 years old, and he had not even spoken, right, up to that point. And Mahaprabhu said, chant the names of the Lord, and he wouldn't chant. And Mahaprabhu said, I've gotten even animals to chant. Why will this boy not chant? Sup Damodar said, oh, he's chanting within his mind, within his heart. And Mahaprabhu gave him his big toe to suck on, you know. What a benediction, right? Little boy, have my, kiss my lotus feet. And he did, and then he began to recite extraordinary Sanskrit prayers in praise of the Lord and Krishna, in this form of Krishna as well. And at that point, he'd not even studied Sanskrit. He was too young. And he'd never spoken, but then he was speaking such beautiful prayers. And of course, he went on to be the great poet and write extraordinary books like Ananda Vrindavan Champu. Right? So, touch of the Lord. So Prahlad Maharaj fixed his mind and sight upon Lord Nrsingadev with full attention in complete trance. With a fixed mind, he began to offer prayers in love with a faltering voice. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada brings to our attention within the verse is the word susam mahita, very attentive, fully fixed. The ability to fix the mind like that, without deviation, is a result of mystic perfection. Right? But the perfections of the yogis, whatever they are fully endowed in the devotee. They're just used in different ways. The mystic yogis may, travel and even enjoy the happiness of this world through their mystic power. But this mystic capacity of complete fixation is used by Prahlad Maharaj, directed toward the object of his love. And Srila Prabhupada, this kind of state is called samadhi or trance. And samadhi is that stage in bhav that awakens that when you come to that stage, you awaken that ability to be completely, constantly fixed on meditation on the Lord and his pastimes and your own internal identity and service to the Lord unbroken, right? So Prahlad Maharaj now had come to that stage and beyond, So Prahlad Maharaj now prayed, how is it possible for me, who have been born in a family of asuras, to offer suitable prayers to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Even until now, all the demigods headed by Lord Brahma and all the saintly persons could not satisfy the Lord by streams of excellent words, although such persons are very qualified, being in the mode of goodness. Then what to be said of me? I am not at all qualified. Right? So, Srila Prabhupada is indicating the first obvious quality being revealed here is humility of a devotee. And he cites the example of Krishna's Kaviraj. Jagai madhai hoite muni se papishta, purashara kita hoite muni se lagista. I am lower than the worm in stool, more sinful than Jagai and Madhai. And Vaishnavas have that natural quality of humility. It's very amazing. I mean, to me, it's inconceivable um, not having approached even a speck of humility yet, real humility, sometimes forced to at least recognize limitations, but humility, real humility, very hard. And yet they genuinely feel this in the heart, right? And Srila Prabhupada says every pure Vaishnav should think like this, should not be falsely proud of his Vaishnav qualifications. And then he quotes, Trinad api sunichena tudor api suhishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya siddhahari. Isn't that nice? Because that's the verse we've been studying for the past many, many days in the Bhajan Rahasya by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street, right? One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. And Srila Prabhupada says after that, unless one is meek and humble, to make progress in spiritual life is very difficult. Right? Just to go back to one sentence, he said, one should not be falsely proud of his Vaishnav qualifications, because that will impede us, right? So that brings to mind something that we've mentioned before from the Madhurya Kadambini of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur at the end of the 3rd chapter, when he describes that Krishna will oftentimes cover the devotee's advancement, make him unaware of how he's growing spiritually internally. And to that devotee, they seem still to not have reached any stage of nishta or ruchi, and feel completely unqualified and stuck and frustrated. And why does he do that? He said to increase the greed of that devotee, right? That if something you really want is being withheld from you, you're going to try harder, but also to increase the humility of the devotee. And that's very telling, because in the Madhyam stage, especially even in Madhyam Kanishta, Madhyam, even up to the stage of Ruchi, so many things will come to you. So many good qualities, right? And when good qualities in bhakti come, people will automatically respect you, honor you, want to follow you, praise you, like this. And being not fully developed in bhakti yet, not on the fully transcendental platform, you've not realized your own siddhadeha, you're still in the bodily conception, getting a taste, and even a sakti awakening an incredible attachment and greed. But until we come to bhav and have seen our own spiritual identity for real, then the attractions, the qualities, the contaminations of the false ego that the false ego imposes on us are always waiting to trip us up. So Krishna withholding that is like a gift, right? So not getting that praise, not getting that recognition, and not even becoming aware, so that we'll become more humble, because then you have to remove from your sense of self that I'm the doer, that by my austerity, by my intelligence, by my devotion, I'm getting all this. And you see that sometimes people that take up bhakti, rather than understand, Srila Prabhupada quotes in this purport, Mahajano Yena Katasa Panta, that, the whole verse in this Bhishma Parva Mahabharata is that the Vedas give many instructions, and there are many different things that you can do, but really the only way to truly advance is to follow the example and the order, the path of the great Mahajanas, right? And that means for us to always be dependent on the order and guidance of Sri Guru. So when one begins to develop a little bit, one may think, oh, I know what I need for my bhakti. I'm going to go off and chant 1 lakh, 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs. I'm going to live in a holy place. I'm going to Radhakund. And I'm going to get Shuddhanam. Because this holy name is the Yuga Dharma. Everything's within it. We're being instructed to chant constantly. I'm going to do that. But the connection with the Lord always goes through Sri Guru. There's no getting around that. This is that special person the Lord has sent to represent himself and give us guidance. Out of love, he's given us that connection. And so creating one's path of bhakti independent of the order of Guru, it just won't work. I remember years ago, one devotee couple had been given a service, I won't go into detail, by Srila Gurudev, and this was in Vrindavan, and they really excelled at it, and they felt very fulfilled by that service in every way. They felt, oh, finally, But then Gurudev took that service away. There were many circumstances involved around it. Not that they were inadequate in it, and he gave it to someone else who really, from an ordinary perspective, was not as qualified in that service. But that person, if they didn't have that service, they would have left. And then the wife was very disturbed and questioned Gurudev, oh, you've finally given it service, why did you take it away? And he said, whatever I decide is coming from a platform that you cannot see or you cannot understand, right? So please just have faith in this. Okay, so then, oh wait, I just read this message. I got distracted. Sorry. And I'd seen other examples of that as well. That unless we have complete faith in the order of Sri Guru, no matter what, then the full benefit of all of our practices won't be there. So part of the cleansing, part of this humility, right, is shedding that false ego that I am the controller, I am the doer, I know best what's for my bhakti. That's why it's always important, right? Sadhu Sangha, right? In the end of the 64 limbs of bhakti, these 5 limbs are given, right? And it's said that even though these limbs were mentioned last, they're the most important. Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan, Bhagavat Shravan, Maturavasa Sri Murtira Shraddhaya Sevan. Taking Sadhu Sangha. What is Sadhu Sangha? That means association with and guidance by sadhus and Sri Guru. Nama Kirtan, Bhagavat Shravan, right, chanting the holy name under their order, hearing Harikatha from them, right, living in a holy place or wherever they have ordered you to be, and worshiping the deity with great faith. But each of these limbs, the first one, Sadhu Sangha, directly mentions that association, right? But the other 4 are dependent on one's relationship with Sri Guru. Because you can't chant Nam unless you've been given that Nam by Sri Guru, right, in Diksha, and then further guidance in how to chant. Hearing Harikatha directly from the lotus lips, or reading their books. These books have immense power when you have the faith and appreciation, right, and humility. Reading the books is done in the same way that we would do when we sit down to hear directly from Sri Guru, right? Attentive and submissive, right? Respectful. And then living in a holy place, what is that? Prabhudatta Desh, right? Wherever our Guru has told us to be, that's the best place to be, right? And that will get us the greatest benefit, even if we're not directly in association with Sri Guru. Many, many years ago, when we had been in Bangalore for a few years, and we're making progress, right? in some ways, preaching was growing. And at that time, I was wondering about my own service, right? Am I doing the right thing? Because, we're always hearing you should be in the direct association, hear Harikatha from Sri Guru and all. And most of the sannyasis, all of them in fact, were traveling and throughout the year being in connection with Srila Gurudev, either all year long, going wherever he goes, and hearing him at different festivals all over the world, or periodically meeting up with him. But that was not happening for me. I would go to the parikrams in Vrindavan and Navadvip, but there you're not getting the same opportunity for intimate direct association, but you could sit down and hear him speak, once or twice a day, and very powerful, no doubt, in the Dham. But I was feeling perhaps there's a lack here. So I asked him, all your sannyasis are traveling and preaching and being with you. And, generally sannyasi is not supposed to be in one place. Shouldn't I be with you, hearing from you and taking that benefit? At least time to time. And he leaned over and he looked at me and he spoke in a kindly way, but a grave way. And he said, no. He said, because I have ordered you to be here, this is what you should do. And that's all he said. And then, but he said, ordered. And when he said that, I got some inspiration and happiness. Because generally, Srila Narayan Maharaj never ordered anybody to do anything, either did Srila Vaman Maharaj. Because in their mind, if they gave an order and you didn't do it, that would be an aparad, right? To neglect the order of the spiritual master, right? So they didn't order. They would suggest what they wanted and encourage, but they wouldn't order. But he said ordered. And then I felt empowered. I said, wow, that's amazing. And then he said, but, time to time, once in a while, once a year or so, if you want to go and preach somewhere for a short time, you can do it. So he opened up that door, right? So then, I go to China once a year. Went to Malaysia once for 10 or 14 days when he was there. Went to Houston to renew my passport when he was there, right? And renew the passport and visa. Yeah, so, but other than that, I felt, well, I've got the order. I'm always there. And then I found out, every year we'd go to Parikram, I was feeling, somehow or other, I'm not getting to hear from him all the time. So there's so much philosophy that all these other sannyasis are able to speak, and I can't speak it. I haven't heard it from him in the way they've heard it. But after that, I got the sense that every time I went to the Parikram, I felt that, wow, I know so much more this year. How does that happen? When asked to speak about any topic, it just flowed a lot easier. And whenever I heard anything, more depth of understanding. Now, I'm not saying, in any great way, but, baby steps, right? But it was concrete. And even some devotees told me that. And I thought, this is the mercy of Sri Guru, right? That order of Guru is the one thing that empowers everything. Right? And there were a few other instances like that. So Prahlad Maharaja is saying these demigods, they're situated in goodness. He says sattva, but Prahlad Maharaja is situated in Shuddha sattva. He considers himself unqualified. That's why we heard the prayers of the demigods. They're very beautiful prayers, but most of them were mixed. Not all, but most of them were mixed with material things. And so in that vein, Prahlad Maharaj continued, one may possess wealth, an aristocratic family, beauty, austerity, education, sensory expertise, luster, influence, physical strength, diligence, intelligence, and mystic yogic power. But I think that even by all these qualifications, one cannot satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, one can satisfy the Lord simply by devotional service. Gajendra did this, and thus the Lord was satisfied by him. Right? And so in that verse, he directly lists all the things that the other demigods were thanking the Lord for restoring. Thank you for restoring these things to us. And Prahlad, who's only a little boy, 4 or 5 years old, has the intelligence and devotional maturity to say, this will not create the connection with you. Devotional service. And when he says devotional service, he means Shuddha Bhakti, right? Not ordinary, right? Pure Bhakti. And then he quotes, Srila Prabhupada quotes, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya Yoga Maya Samavrata. I don't reveal myself to people who don't have this kind of desire. I cover them by my energy. And he goes on to explain that even if Brahmanas have, this is Prahlad, have all 12 of the Brahminical qualifications, but is not a devotee, and is averse to the lotus feet of the Lord, he is certainly lower than a devotee who is a dog-eater, but who has dedicated everything, mind, words, activities, wealth, and life, to the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee is better than a Brahmana, better than such a Brahmana, because the devotee can purify his whole family, whereas a so-called Brahmana in a position of false prestige cannot purify even himself. Right? So, Srila Prabhupada quotes a number of verses to support that. These verses, and this one in particular also, are used by Vaishnav Das, Sannyasi Thakur, to defeat the arguments of Chudamani, Krishna Chudamani, about the superiority of the Brahmanas, right? That a Vaishnav, even outside of Varnashram system, is superior to a Brahmana who is not a Vaishnava. And so, he says, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always fully satisfied in himself. Therefore, when something is offered to him, the offering, by the Lord's mercy, is for the benefit of the devotee. For the Lord does not need service from anyone. To give an example, if one's face is decorated, the reflection of one's face in a mirror is also seen to be decorated. Right. So that's something we have to appreciate. The Lord is Atmaram and Aptakam, and fully satisfied in every way. All his desires are fulfilled. The only thing that the devotee can offer is his love. And that love is what attracts him. There's a beautiful conversation between Krishna and the gopis, which is elaborated on by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And they are chastising him, right? Because he seems to not reciprocate with them appropriately. Why are you doing all these things? And they say there's different kinds of people. One will show affection. If you show affection to that person, they'll reciprocate with you, right, equally. The other is that, that's like a merchant, right? The other is like a person, even if you don't show them love, they'll show you love. And that's like a parent, right? The selflessness of the parent. And the other, even if you give them affection, they won't reciprocate, and they may even do you harm or criticize you, right? And in each of them, there's some breakdown elaboration, right? And they say, which one are you, Krishna? And he goes through it all. He says, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not that, right? Because I'm fully satisfied in myself. And I have all my desires fulfilled. But what I am, I, and he says, but you gopis, you are the most glorious because you're the second kind. Even though I may not appear to reciprocate, you still show selfless love, unlimited selfless love. So you're the most glorious of all. And so I really can't reciprocate with you, right? I'm not capable of reciprocating because your love is selfless, one-pointed. You don't care even for family, for children, for society, for reputation, for, your standing in society, nothing. But me, I have to consider. I can't abandon my family, my devotees. In Vrindavan, I have mother, father, friends, animals in the forest itself. I'm obligated to reciprocate with them. I can't abandon them. In my numerous forms, Narayan forms and Vaikuntha, so many kinds of devotees. I can't abandon them. Only you are one-pointed and exclusive. And so, for you, I can only offer that you be satisfied by your own glorious deeds. In other words, even though I may not appear to reciprocate, I am reciprocating. And thus, even though you're not seeking it, any kind of reward or happiness, I give you the greatest reward, the greatest happiness, the greatest ecstasy because of your service. And this is also spoken by Ramananda Roy in that 8th chapter of Madhya Lila. The irony is that Gopi's not seeking anything, but they become the most ecstatic in their service, even though sometimes they think it's an impediment. So, for us who are still, fruitively motivated, this is a kind of a subtle motivation to become unfruitive, right? And you can desire that. Oh, I want to be completely selfless. And right now, we might want to become completely selfless because of the happiness it will give us. But in the background, or the foreground, I don't know which it would be, is the realization that if we adopt this mood, this is the way to please Krishna in the greatest way. And to please Krishna's devotees in the greatest way. Our Guru and all of his associates, all these beautiful gopis, manjaris, Srimati Radhika herself, all will become so happy the more we develop this mentality. And that internally will give us great happiness, but that happiness has that special quality of selflessness, right? And humility and all the things that we've been hearing about, right? Which these are like ornaments on the soul, right? So anyway, Prahlad Maharaja is revealing these. And so he says, although I was born in a demonic family, I may without a doubt offer praise to the Lord with full endeavor, as far as my intelligence allows. Anyone who has been forced by ignorance to enter the material world may be purified of material life if he offers praise to the Lord and hears the Lord's glories. So that's us, right? We're all born in demoniac families. Everything in Kali Yuga is demoniac. But be confident. We're fully qualified to offer prayers to the Lord with full endeavor. This is the gift. This is also in that 6th chapter. The eligibility for bhakti is there for every soul, regardless of jati, caste. Whether that caste means the varnashram conception of caste or even the species conception of caste. Everyone, even animals, are eligible for bhakti, right? So, and we have unlimited example, right? The twin Arjun trees, Gajendra the elephant, the forest in Jharkhand, the dog, Shivananda Sen that took care of that dog, and it went to Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu fed him and liberated him. Everybody, right? The trees that Lord Ramachandra shot, right? Those 7 trees with his arrow. The stone, Ahalya had become a stone, right? Everybody is eligible for this. So just be happy, right? Just chant, 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 and be happy. So we'll stop there at verse 12. I thought I was just going to read through these, but even though I'm only touching on Srila Prabhupada's purports, there's so much here. And so we have to wait a few more days. We're in the last two verses of Bhajra Rahasya. We're in the particular meditation of those in Bhav are experiencing at that point, right? At that understanding that time of the day and all. So we'll get back to it and we'll finish it. But this is so nice and so relevant to the chapter we're reading. So we'll stop here, offering our most grateful obeisance to Srila Prabhupada for this book, to our Sannyas Guru, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, Sannyas and Shiksha Guru, and to our Guru Varga, all the assembled Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bo.